So welcome to the FAIASIDE podcast, and I'm your host, Adam Bowcutt, and I'm excited to announce today's special guest, Kevin Pham, long-time Bitcoin investor, advisor, and commentator. So welcome to the show, Kevin. And how are you, and how's San Diego?
So I'm actually near San Francisco. I'm doing well. My internal state is great, but I know that in close proximity to me, there's a lot of protesting and kind of turmoil with people toppling statues right now of all types of historical figures. So that is a little disconcerting, but I can only control what I can control, and I'm controlling my own environment, and everything's peaceful where I am.
Definitely. And again, welcome to the show, and it's episode 13 of the FAIASIDE podcast, bridging the gap between people and technology. And I really appreciate you joining us on the show. And I'll ask you about what you're wearing shortly, so bear with me on that one. So people whoever is watching, they might be asking the question, but that'll come. So, all right. So, first question, Kevin, is what's your background, and what's your background professionally and personally, if you'd like to share?
Okay, so my background professionally is in commercial banking. I worked my way up from retail banking at Wells Fargo Bank all the way up to corporate banking at banks like Comerica Bank and City National Bank, where I bank kind of the who's of venture-backed startups. Mm-hmm. That was before I got into Bitcoin. And just me personally, I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, California, the home of tech and Silicon Valley. Went to San Jose State University. Was born to Vietnamese Catholic immigrants, and just kind of been immersed in the crossroads between technology and finance. And me working in banking and kind of seeing how the systems couldn't talk with my software-based clients is kind of what red pilled me into understanding Bitcoin when I got into it.
Okay. Yeah. So interesting. So how long were you in the sort of corporate sector with respect to finance, and what was the sort of catalyst to transition to what you're doing now, more with the Bitcoin space?
Yeah. So I was in banking. I got my start in banking in, I believe, 2008 or 9, right in the middle of the financial crisis. So I kind of just got thrown into the fire.
Oh,
yeah. No pun intended. And what I saw at Wells Fargo first was basically there was basically a run on the bank at Washington Mutual that I don't think, either purposely or not purposely, it wasn't covered much in the media, and people were pooling their money out of Washington Mutual because it was rumored they were kind of one of the troubled banks with the subprime mortgages, and they were pulling out cash and checks, and the Wells Fargo lobby literally looked like an emergency room for Washington Mutual clients looking to pull out their money and move it to Wells Fargo, which is one of the safest banks. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was crazy. But also, being a millennial, you start wondering, why can't money move like information? Why do people have to physically move? So those are kind of the two themes. It was one, inefficiency, and two, like corruption. Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of the two themes that I've seen in my in my banking career. So Wells Fargo kind of was known as the more responsible bank, but unfortunately, it turned out that they kind of had a different kind of scam going on.
Wow, that's what I was going to ask you about, because I know that you were involved in, or you created and you founded a certain movement against Wells Fargo Bank. Is that right? Can you share with the viewers and listeners what that's about?
Yeah. So what Wells Fargo was doing was they were maximizing non-interest income by signing up people for all types of accounts and services that they either didn't consent to or they kind of got tricked into opening.
Wow.
Customers would have 3 checking accounts and 5 saving accounts, and all of them be charged, overdrafts and fees.
Whoa.
And they would just find any excuse to open you so many checking accounts. And what I realized was the reason why they weren't in trouble with subprime was because they were able to generate non-fee income or non-interest income, so they didn't really have to extend too far and lower their credit standards. So effectively, people were going from one predatory bank and not unknowingly going to another predatory bank. I didn't know any better at the time. I just know it didn't feel right. And people were telling me, I'm naive or I'm soft and this is just the real world. It's dog eat dog. And simply, I just asked myself, would I sell my mother this stuff? If the answer is no, then why would it be okay for me to sign somebody else up for this?
That's a great question. I've heard I've heard in Australia the phrase, the granny factor. So yeah, would you sell it? Would you sell it? Would you do this? Would you behave this way for your grandma or mother? Yeah, so that's it's definitely important. So with regards to your background and the changes from Wells Fargo, what are your thoughts on also what's your view on the current state of the world right now, and how do you think technology could potentially be a benefit or a hindrance to the world?
So I actually think that there is too much focus on technology.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So then, I'm here in Silicon Valley, and everybody kind of has like a savior complex, like the Elon Musks and the Steve Jobs of the world, that they're going to be the ones to create a new innovation to save humanity.
Big unicorn.
Yeah. And what I'm discovering, kind of in Silicon Valley, they have that joke, we created this new compression algorithm to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
It's actually it's really misguided and wrong. So I actually don't think technology is going to improve the world that much. I think it's going to be a shift in consciousness and to put technology in its correct place, not as our savior, but just as a tool.
As a tool, yeah. So with respect to your experience with San Francisco and the Silicon Valley, what do you think has created that area so that it is? Because I'm getting a bit of a sense that it's almost like an echo chamber of people within that space who have similar viewpoints, and that, like you just mentioned, wanting to change the world by algorithms or technology. So what do you think caused that in the past, or how do you think it's going to change, if it is, in the future, whether it's assisted by technology or not? And then with respect to changing consciousness, have you got any sort of viewpoints or insights in that specific area?
Yeah. So my view is that it's very similar to kind of the culture in Bitcoin. What I'm finding is that like atheism and like belief in economic growth and progress, social progress, is kind of like the de facto belief system now. And everybody kind of fancies themselves as believers in science being the and reason being the way forward. And I think what actually happens is that there's another religion or an ideology that's not overtly called a religion or ideology that fills that void. and people turn out that people have a desire to believe in something, believe in some type of salvation. And with kind of the, dearth in, religion in Silicon Valley, it seems that entrepreneurship and money and technology has filled that void. And people are looking to these kind of enigmatic CEOs to kind of be their saviors.
Right, interesting. Yeah.
But when you really think about it, all a business does is provides a good or service in order to maximize return for shareholders. It's a very single purpose tool. And the fact that everybody's using this tool as the means to save or change the world, I think that's what's leading to this massive concentration of power of, tech companies that have the eyeballs and the ears of, a large percentage of the world, billions of people. And the problem is that, these companies are single purpose entities designed to maximize profit, not to make people healthier or happier or anything like that. So if this is the only system we have in place, I think that is one of the main reasons why the world is the way it is right now. Because, you see with all the rioting and the protests and the fighting, it's all over social media. You can't escape it. Like I have to, get off social media or I find myself feeling, fear and anxiety, and it's just very toxic and not healthy. But what I'm finding out is that, a lot of people try to say, there's like puppet masters or, this is a grand conspiracy. But in reality, it's just a lot of bad incentives and everybody acting on it. For example, these advertising-based social media models, they're all based on, capturing your attention. And what captures your attention most? Our most primal urges are, either, fear or sex, right? So you see those extremes, right? So if they want to capture your attention, then they're going to show things that scare you, like, right? So it's like, if you're black, you're going to get, lynched or shot by a white cop. Or if you're white, you're going to get jumped by a black mob or whatever. And basically, they're gaming your primal instincts, and you can't look away. And on the other side, you see things like Pornhub, right? So that's kind of the other kind of, and that's very popular during the quarantine, and that that manipulates your other primal desires. So I think it's the immense power, because we've given so much power to these just profit-seeking corporations.
Entities and systems. Like as you said about they end up being obviously run by these CEOs that people look up to, or employees who end up potentially feeling like robots, because they're not they're helping the system and they're looking up to the CEOs, but there's that kind of void in a sense of what we talked about, potentially needing a change of consciousness or something like that. But there seems like you've got an idea of how Bitcoin could potentially help. So this is where I'm going to lead on to the next question. That's what I'm getting. But great insights there, Kevin. So I'm just going to move on to this question here. And what it is what do you like and dislike about crypto? And I'll say that in inverted commas, Bitcoin, and that includes BTC, BCH, and BSV. And for some of the viewers and listeners who aren't quite au fait with Bitcoin and the three different ticker symbols, would you be able to gently clarify it for them, and then kind of share your dislikes and likes of them?
Sure. So then basically, there is probably three main variants of Bitcoin. It's almost like a protocol war. I think, in the early days of any technology, you have, a couple protocols duking it out to be the one, master protocol. For example, similar to, when VHS or, DVDs, first came out.
Yeah, and there's Betamax, old Betamax, VHS, DVD, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was Blu-ray, HD DVD and stuff like that. So basically, all of them have very distinct ideologies. Again, and I think it comes back to the same problem that I don't think people are aware that Bitcoin has, that is very similar to the tech industry, to where that people are looking at this technology as a means of salvation.
Right, similar to being a part of an entity or a company that's wants to create profit for their shareholders.
Yeah,
so you're seeing that.
Yeah, it's just a single purpose technology, and the reason why I think that all of these have different ideologies is because everybody has too much pride, and everybody's trying to be at the top of the hierarchy, and they want to fancy themselves as an expert as opposed just to listening to the person that created it, Craig Wright.
Right, yeah, Craig Wright, yeah.
So then basically, if you just listen to the creator and follow his values and his thought process, then you can be very successful. But most people don't want to be subordinate to the creator of Bitcoin. They want to say that the creator doesn't exist. We don't know them, so now you have to listen to me. I'm the arbiter of truth of what Bitcoin is. And
why
basically, why do I think that is? So I think that people love power is intoxicating, and a lot of people in Bitcoin, they're just from very obscure industries, whether it's Austrian economics or or cryptography or cipher punk underworlds or niche cultures, and they've always been obscure, and this is their first taste of power and wealth. And
right, so it's kind of it's a bit of a kind of, yeah, as you said, it's like a poison apple, or they kind of get drawn like a drug maybe. And
yeah so it's interesting because my experience with doing the leading the Wells Fargo movement gave me personal insight into what these people are going through. And basically I went viral and I was over on national TV. It felt really, really good to have power. Everybody wanted to give me a job. Everyone wanted to interview me. Dating wise, everything was inbound. And I was like, man, I felt like Spider in the Venom suit. Like, this is great. but when that happened, I started really getting full of myself.
Ego.
Yeah, I was watching my interviews over and over again, and if anybody kind of made me mad, I would say, "Do you know who I am? What I can do to you?"
You did. You did.
Yeah. And but the thing is that it overtakes you, and you're not conscious. It just feels great, and you don't want to give it up, because after I was done with it and the CEO got removed and returned his bonus, I actually was sad because I was going to lose my power. So the thing was that I had to keep it going and create more boogeymen to, for people to keep on listening to me. So I think that's what's happening with the different leaders in all the different camps. Right. And basically all those different camps have different ideologies that serve the power of the leader. So it's very interesting. There's actually a lot of similarities between what's happening in with the Black Lives Matter movement and the Antifa with actually BTC and BCH.
Right. Okay.
So I have this view. I think I may have been the first one to, or no, maybe I was the second one. I think Mark Wilcox, and he's the one who first said it. But then he said BTCers are socialist, and I never understood that because I thought, oh, this is like a capitalist thing. But really, what happened was that Bitcoin first started out as a system that's controlled by miners.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is that it became very competitive because it's a permissionless market. And then, the ASICs came in and, Bitmain, and they were kind of, crowding all the early people out. And basically what happened was like, these people didn't want to lose their power. The hobbyists.
Right, they're trying to hold on to that ideology, their power, and whatever it takes.
Yeah, because I was here early, and, these guys are, big corporate players, and now I feel that I'm losing my power. So instead of just, being a forthright person, being a man, and just saying, all right, I got outcompeted, I tip my hat, this is better for the entire ecosystem, or, putting it on themselves to, compete better, they basically called the miners evil.
This is BTC, was it?
Yeah, so they basically changed the narrative and said that they were evil because they were concentrating power, and then they turned it into this decentralized cult religion to say that every single person should have an equal say. Every person that runs a full node should have an equal say. So basically what was happening was that there was certain undefined leaders that was spreading this message to tell everybody that they're equal. But the fact that there are people at the top that are dictating this message means that there is not equality. And in reality, there's a power structure. So it's very similar. So there is a hierarchy, but they're just not identifying it. So basically, it's very similar to communism, to where there is a leader like Stalin or Mao, and they're saying that, the evil capitalists are, accumulating too much power. We need to decentralize, economic power. We need to distribute the means of production more evenly, so everybody has an equal, say, and equal power. So it's very similar. So basically, it's communism within Bitcoin. So BTC is actually very similar to communism. And the thing is that they won't say it outright, but when you look at their ideology, it's very, very, very similar. And in BCH, they did kind of fancy themselves as more capitalists in the beginning, and they were going to support miners. But lo and behold, eventually some bigger miners and better miners than the Bitmains of the world, like N-Chain and CoinGeek, came in. And then what did they say when they started getting outcompeted? Do you remember what they said?
I don't. I'm to be honest, I'm relatively new to this. To this, and that's what I'm learning from you right now. Okay. So now, what did they say?
So basically, BCH split off from BTC because it was a fork. So there was a battle over, the block size, and basically the BTCers, they totally changed the consensus rules from one miner, one vote, or one CPU, one vote, to one non-mining full node, one vote. And they said they can veto the miners, and they said they didn't want big blocks because big blocks would further centralize the network, because most people can't afford to run very
BCH said they didn't want big blocks, or was that BTC?
BTC did. Yeah, and BCH, when Craig and Calvin were still aligned with them, said they wanted to. So then basically BCH kind of split off or seceded from BTC. And then, they were the big block implementation, the pro miner implementation for a while. And then they they kind of started reverting to doing what BTC did, where a few developers were trying to push through some updates that benefited, certain parties that, they answered to. And, Craig and Calvin and Shane and CoinGeek disagreed with those changes. And then a hash war ensued to where people were spinning up miners in order to vote for the implementation that they wanted. And then what started happening was that I believe CoinGeek and Shane, they were out competing Bitmain and Roger Ver's miners. And then I believe the argument that Bitmain and Roger were saying was that we can't go too big. Our blocks can't be too big because we need some type of we need some decentralization to keep the system fair. And I was like, oh, you guys are totally being hypocrites and using the BTC arguments.
Yeah. BCH was doing that. So yeah, it just sounds really messy. Leadership.
It's actually very simple. So let me just explain the concept as well. So basically, every time somebody feels that they're being outcompeted and they're going to lose their power or their place in the hierarchy, then they start talking about equality.
Right, gotcha, yeah. So it's like
the insight that I got from that is that communism and like socialism's appeal or egalitarian appeals about equality and fairness or everybody being equal. It's actually not some like grand political theory that came out of some genius's head, like Karl Marx or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually just a very primitive survival instinct to where if you feel that you're being outcompeted, then you will say that the game is unfair and then that everybody should be equal.
Well, up until that point where you're being outcompeted, and then it's okay, right? It's almost like a strategy.
Yeah. So it's if you look at it in nature, the weaker species, their strength is in numbers, right? And then you have the apex predators, and they usually are alone, like a great white shark or whatever. And the smaller species, the weaker ones, they have to use their powers in numbers in order to kind of survive. And that kind of happens in a competitive market to where usually there's only a few people at the top.
Yeah.
And then, what happens is that there is a lot of competition, and then there's new people at the top, and then the old people get mad, and then they say the game isn't fair, and then they say we should be equal. So let me give you a very simple real world example. So imagine you're at a party, a singles party with women, eligible women and men. And then imagine at the party some drop dead gorgeous blonde in a red dress comes in and steals all the attention of the men. What do you think the instinctual reaction of the more average looking women that are no longer being paid attention to?
Well, maybe that, might feel a bit, might think unfair, or they might think, well, I can't compete.
Yeah, and then what's going to happen is that their kind of instinctual reaction is to form a collective, a group, and to maybe spread rumors about this person. Maybe she sleeps around, or she's like not a good person or whatever, in order to knock her down, in order to kind of elevate themselves. So
sounds pretty toxic to me.
Yeah, but then if you think about Craig being the hottest girl at the party,
okay.
And then all the people trying to disparage him, even though and lying about him, is very similar, correct?
I'd like ad hominem attacks as well. It's like attacking his character.
Yeah, but not only that, but they're outright lies. Like girls spreading rumors about girls that they don't like. But you might say that, well, maybe that's just a female thing because women are less able to engage in physical combat like a man can. But
sure, there'll be some women that would disagree with that. But
sure. Yeah, but I know that people will say, oh, that's just yeah, you know, generally speaking, that's just like a female tactic or whatever.
Yeah.
But have you ever been in like a work environment to where, you know, let's say, you know, it's a sales environment, and then, you know, all the men there kind of have a gentleman's agreement, you know, not to push the goals too far.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, we all want to get home at 4 and go golf or whatever, and then one day some new guy comes out and he doesn't know about this agreement and he's a hot shot and he starts blowing the numbers out of the water.
Yeah.
Right? So what is the instinctual response of kind of the mediocre group of men that have their
collectively get together and kind of bash him down? Or
join a collective and call him a brown noser, goody two shoe, or, you know, he's trying too hard, he's screwing it up for the rest of us. Whereas
or cheating.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas you know, a grounded, ethical person that wants to grow and learn would be inspired by this person and say, "Well, he knows something I know. I want to learn from him and stuff." So basically, this collective, instinctual kind of attack against people that are very exceptional is based in, you know, envy, and that is kind of like the foundation of kind of, you know, collectivist and communist movements, to where there's a leader that tells people that, you know, they are where they are in life because the guy at the top, you know, is exploiting you, when in reality the honest thing is, like, you know, this person is where they are most of the time because they worked hard and they have the abilities and they applied themselves, and if you do it yourself, you can do it too.
Meritocracies.
Come again?
Like a meritocracy, sort of. It's based on how hard you work, you learn, you know, feedback, you develop. So and so you kind of you're making a case, but a bit of the structure behind it, BTC, what you like and dislike about BTC and BCH and BSV. And just briefly to clarify for the listeners and viewers as well, is BTC is the BTC is the original, not original, sorry. There's BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, BCH is Bitcoin Cash, and then BTC is the Bitcoin ticker symbol that's currently, because the reason I say this is because I've spoken to quite a few people that don't really know much about Bitcoin, and they, as soon as I say, what do you know about Bitcoin? They go, oh, isn't it? It's at about, I don't know, $10,000 or at the moment, isn't it? I was like, yeah, that's BTC, but I'd like to chat to you more about it. So, what are your thoughts on where? Yeah, so this actually, what I'm gonna do to kind of frame it as well. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from Twitter that we got, and it's it will relate here as well, I'm sure. So this is from Twitter. This is from Michael Wehrman, and he said, so Kevin, do you think the anarchist mindset in BCH will eventually be BCH's downfall because all the infighting in BCH seems exactly to reflect what anarchists are looking for in any project or zone they own?
Yes, yeah. So again, because, you know, they have too much pride and they're unwilling to listen to the person that created it to figure out the proper way to use it, what they're trying to do isn't going to work. Just very similar to what you know, anarchists kind of, you know, in like that autonomous zone in Seattle, it's not going to work because they don't really have any vision or solution. All they know is that they're against something.
That's
so
just no plan.
They're anti-something. They just want to rebel against something and be the opposite of it. They don't really have a separate vision. So basically, BCH, their whole thing is just to be anti-government. Anything that government is, they don't want to. They want the opposite, or they don't want to be a part of it.
Right.
Problem is, like 99.99% of the world is run by a government. So you're not gonna work with, you know, many people if you're not willing to work with government. And And basically their mindset is that, you know, government is just unequivocally evil. You know, there's no nuance there. Because, you know, a government, they have a monopoly on violence, so they can, you know, coerce people to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just say, you know, if we just use, you know, Bitcoin to route around the banking system and to collapse fiat currency because you don't have to use it anymore because you could just use Bitcoin. And then they say, you know, just from those smoldering ashes, then we can just use the market to create order in the world. And
what are your thoughts on that?
No, this goes right back to my original critique of Silicon Valley, to where they think that, you know, just money and markets will change the world. But, you know, even with money and markets, those are just very single purpose things.
You still need a community, don't you? What are your thoughts on community, on how important that is, and how that relates to either what anarchists want, or BCH, or how tools like technology can help create change?
Yeah. So I think, you know, George Samuels will agree with me that we are social creatures, and we crave community. We crave the safety of a community that will help us in our time of need and be there for us. It's a very natural desire. And what I'm discovering is that everybody talks about kind of the you know, the capitalism or communism duality. It's like either or. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think that's a false dichotomy.
I agree.
Right. And basically, I think what happens is that people become religious about capitalism, and they think that markets and capitalism can save the world. But really, all capitalism, markets, and money is transactions, using money to signal what you want. Yeah. And let me get a little deeper. So, as human beings, you know, when we first started out, we didn't have barter. A lot of people will say we had barter. What we really had was very small, intimate tribes. And basically, the way that we cooperated was we kept internal ledgers in our head of, you know, I help somebody, I remember I helped them, and it's expected that this person will help me. So if I have a bad harvest, or if my neighbor has a bad harvest, then I will, you know, help them. I will feed them, knowing that eventually there will be a time when I have a bad harvest, and then they will reciprocate to me.
Yeah.
And that's basically what a family is, right? So basically, the way that we exchanged value and did favors for each other was that we engaged in reciprocal favors based on trust, which is basically, I will help you because I trust you to help me when I need you. And a very simple example is, you know, when your mother cooks for you, do you give her money in exchange?
True.
No, right? But then economics tells you that in order to incentivize somebody to do something for you, you gotta give them money.
Yeah, good point. It's not as black and white and simple as that,
right?
Is it?
Yeah, but then the problem is that if you think capitalism markets, then you're going to think that putting money between everything is going to fix things, but actually it's going to make you more alienated and alone and sad.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, the answer is that, you know, people say, well, you know, I don't need to give anything to my mom because she's just altruistic and self-sacrificing, and she doesn't expect anything back. But that's not necessarily true. You know, if she needs to open up a jar, or she needs you to help her move, you know, you're going to be there for her, right? So the reality is that, you know, like family and friends is you are entering into long-term reciprocal relationships based on trust. Mm-hmm. That I want to have a long-term relationship with this person, with my mother, with my friends, with my wife. Therefore, I'm going to give without exchanging money, and we're going to trust them to return. And you empirically know that, because if there's a friend that constantly asks you for favors, but never is there for you when you need them, mm-hmm. then what happens? They get cut out.
Is that really a friendship?
Yeah, right. But then, you know, people try to tell you, well, you're supposed to give without expectation of return, and that's actually not exactly true. And yeah, another example is, you know, when you ask your friends to move, you don't pay them $100, you buy them pizza.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, long story short is that we engage in reciprocal favors based on trust, in order to help one another. And we emotionally are wired to do that, and that feels really good, right? Mm-hmm. But then, you know, one day there was an innovation to where there was somebody from outside our tribe that came across our territory. And basically we said that, you know, I don't trust this person. I don't know this person. I want to have a long-term relationship with this person. And, you know, we should just kill them and take their stuff. But, you know, maybe there was some type of, you know, wise person that said, well, maybe this person knows something or has something that we don't have that can help us.
They don't kill him yet.
Yeah, but don't kill him. But the problem is that we don't know him, and he's just passing through, and we're not going to have a long-term relationship. But how can we work together? So basically, they agreed on a trustless form of value.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So like a token, right? So either it's, you know, shells or salts or gold, and basically they said that they basically say that, you know, I don't trust you, but we can trust that, you know, this token has value, and I want that beaver pelt because, you know, we don't have it in our village. So I will give you this gold that we both agree has value, and we don't have to trust each other, and we just do the exchange. So long story short, money is what you use to get strangers to do favors for you. So we're not warring, right? So we're engaging in transactions. But the problem is that money is only good for having a relationship with a stranger. So if in your life, all you have is money, then all you have is a relationship with strangers that will just do one-time transactions with you. And if you don't have family and friends and community, then your safety and security is always fleeting. It's always based on how much money you have. Whereas, say, friends and family, they don't care if you have money, right? You're there because you guys have a history that you're always there for each other. So in reality, relationships is actually a more natural, secure form of wealth than money. And a lot of people don't understand this distinction, and then they get too preoccupied with getting money, and then they end up becoming very depressed because they can't trust anybody.
Yeah, you hear stories of millionaires, billionaires who are just really unhappy and depressed because they just focused on making money, and they sacrifice relationships and families. So
yeah, so it's just like nutrition. They're missing the most basic ingredients of like happiness, which is strong relationships. So
I really appreciate that depth of insight there as well, because that it's great how you can relate it to technology, Bitcoin specifically, the different sort of faction. I don't want to use the word factions, more like ideologies and where we're going with it. Also, we mentioned George Chiosi Samuels as well. He actually mentioned on Twitter a question to follow up with the previous one from Michael is, so Kevin, do you think similar anarchists have made their way to BSV as well?
Yes, I do. So there's kind of a anarcho-capitalist wing of BSV.
Anarcho-capitalist wing.
Yeah. So it's basically, you know, the market is God, and if we just unleash the market, then it'll solve all our problems.
Right, yeah.
So these are the people that don't want to raise VC. They don't want to engage with the legal system, the patents. They don't want to work with governments. They want to use BSV as their primary currency. Right. Because they basically think that fiat currency and governments are a hindrance to capitalism and markets, and that we should just sidestep all these institutions, and then once the market is unleashed, then that will create order and harmony in society. And the problem with that is that, again, going back to the thing, the majority of people like the legal system. They like government. And if your whole MO is you want to destroy all that, then you're not going to be very successful. And I think a lot of these people don't like to listen to Craig as well, because Craig is very well-read in history of common law and government. And basically what he's saying is that they're here for a reason, right? Because it turns out that, man just left unregulated actually creates a very chaotic, adversarial, unsafe system to where humanity cannot flourish. And there is well-documented history of unregulated markets going crazy, and basically these people are also very keen on being famous and having power and wealth. So I think that's why that they want to rebel again from the creator and then become kind of their own god or their own creator of a protocol.
Almost reminds me of your initial story of an experience of the.
So the I think the lesson here is that the common thread is human beings. So regardless if this is politics or BTC, PCH, or BSV or different camps, or those examples at the party or at the workplace I was talking about, the common thread is human beings. So all these ideologies fundamentally come down to human drives and human dynamics, just for the need of gaining power. So if people want to rebel against their parents, then people are going to want to rebel against government, right? It's kind of fractal, like it's a society is just a collective of individuals. So you can see all these behaviors at a very local level, and then basically if the behaviors are left unregulated, then it happens on a societal level to where people are rebelling against entire governments and whatnot. So common thread is that the lesson you should learn is that just because you're a Bitcoiner, you shouldn't believe that you're better than other people and so much more than other people, because you are still human and you are still you are still vulnerable to the emotions of jealousy and greed. And
we all breathe. Every person, every human breathes the same air and part of the same.
But the second that you think that you are above it and you are not vulnerable to these things, that's when you become most vulnerable from them. So it's very important to be humble and to listen to people that know what they're talking about.
I love it. So I would like, before I move on to the next question, and then we'll move on to the rapid fire questions, is that question of what you're wearing. So what are you wearing and why? And I do remember when I was at CoinGeek in London that I didn't actually meet you, but I remember seeing a gentleman who looked like you. It was you that was wearing that. So what can you share us a story about that?
Yeah, so what I'm wearing is a Kevlar bulletproof vest. It's soft armor.
So why
Armor.
why are you wearing a Kevlar bulletproof vest?
So it's kind of a multi-pronged explanation.
Yeah.
I like to kill multiple birds with one stone. So basically, I was a hardcore BTC cult member, and I left that cult, but I still know what their ideology is, their radical ideology, which is that decentralization is their god. And anything that introduces centralization, whether it's a corporation, a government, or a miner, needs to be struck down, right? Because if decentralization is God, then centralization is evil or the devil or Satan.
There's that division again. It's a
right
divide.
But then I mean it doesn't really make any sense. But then these people really believe it, and they think it's some profound new ideology, but in reality they're just trying to protect their investment because they hold it.
Yeah, and that goes to when I was asking people that don't really know much about Bitcoin, what's the price? It's like, is it going to go to $1 million, or what's it at the moment? $12,000, $10,000. So, and it's very, very fascinating, some of this human behavior. So, going on to your story about why you're wearing a bulletproof vest. Yeah.
So basically, when people have a lot of money, they get very threatened by people that threaten their investment. So anytime I noticed that anytime BTC's place at the top of the the coin market cap charts is threatened, they start lashing out violently at people because they think it's an attack by a state or a corporation or something. So for example, there was one time that Ethereum almost passed BTC, and then people started pointing Vitalik as the leader or the single point of failure, and then somebody created fake news that he died in a car accident, and then the price dropped.
No.
So it did show that Ethereum was centralized around Vitalik's leadership, but it also showed that if you kill a leader, then it'll drop the price of a centralized cryptocurrency. And I kind of read, I kind of connected the dots, and I was like, oh, well, this is what they think, or this is how they will defend it. Because the whole notion that Satoshi not existing or not being around anymore is that you can't kill the leader of BTC or Bitcoin, right? So that's why they believe in this cult or this ideology, or they don't want to believe that Craig is Satoshi because they think that a leader introduces centralization. And also there was one time where Roger Ver, I think, tried to pump the price of BCH class BTC, and then they reported him to the CFTC for insider trading. So they were basically trying to get law enforcement with guns to go after Roger for that. So I just connected the dots, and anytime that BTC is threatened, people will go after leaders or supposed leaders of the cryptocurrencies. So my intuition at the time was that BSV is eventually going to surpass BTC in price, and I want to get ahead of either people trying to attack me, because I get attacked on Twitter all the time. I want to get attacked physically or violently, and also to protect, like Craig and Calvin. Well, I know they have, their own forms of protection, but to actually get ahead of that. So I think for me, I don't wait for problems to happen. I try to get ahead of it. So basically, I say I know what you guys are all about, and we're ready. And also I guess the second thing is that I like to tell the truth. And it turns out that the truth is very threatening to a lot of powerful people. So that
there's a lot of money involved as well, isn't there? And that you know, linking money, that cliche, you know, money and power, and it's
money, power, and lies, right? Yeah. So then if you uncover the lie, then somebody's going to lose a lot of money and they don't want to. Or they're going to go to prison or something like that, right? So then they'll do everything they can, you know, not for that not to happen. They have a lot of resources to get things done. So
it's almost symbolic. It's almost like symbolic as well as you know, physical protection. It's a symbol as well.
Yeah. And the third thing is that I just love the movie Gladiator, and I wish that we can have a time where men can walk around in armor.
Yeah, that one. Why not?
I mean, when you were a kid, like, you know, you like dress up in, like, you know, Batman suit or you know whatever. I think it would be cool if you know, we can walk around, you know, with, you know, wearing like armor, you know, and then move on to like Iron Man suits later.
Yeah, and also Iron Man suits out and you just fly off and jetpack.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I think that and you know, at a higher level, I think society goes through cycles. So if you look at like Roman society, right, when things are peaceful, everybody's wearing togas, everybody's very safe. But then, you know, eventually Rome, you know, collapsed, and then the Dark Ages, and then all the medieval, you know, kingdoms and clans started fighting, and everybody was walking around with armor all the time.
Yeah.
So I think
with catapults and bow and arrows and spear and
So I think that we are heading towards that time. If you look at America kind of like as Rome, and you know, it kind of weaning. Its time in the sun is kind of weird.
Interesting insight on that, especially right in this present moment as well. What's happening? So yeah, appreciate you answering that question. It's definitely made it clearer for me, and I'm sure the listeners and viewers as well. So moving on here, Kevin, is you pretty much answered quite a lot of it, but I'm going to ask anyway. So what do you think the world needs more or less of?
Great question. I think the world needs more belief and reverence for God or a creator. What I've kind of discovered is that, you know, I've been studying a lot of kind of like Christian theology lately. And I look at the 10 Commandments, and you know, there's this one commandment that says, like, you know, don't worship false idols. And you know, my whole life I read it, I was just like, you know, why is that a commandment? Why is God so jealous or like so insecure that he needs people to worship him and only him? And yeah, I thought it was just like really petty. It's like, you know, you wouldn't think God is jealous and like really cares that, you know, as long as they're good people, like it should be fine, right? But what I'm finding is that when people don't believe in some type of supreme being or a creator, they either think of themselves as a supreme being that can decide, you know, who lives and who dies, you know, like a Mao or Stalin or Hitler or something like that. Or, you know, Kim Jong, you know, Un or whatever, you know, they fancy themselves as their own God when they're just a man, right? And I see that a lot, you know, in tech, in entrepreneurship, to where people think that they're gods and they're above it all, and then they start, you know, engaging in very, you know, very violent or unethical behaviors because they think they can do whatever they want. Or people start believing in the wrong things. So people start believing that money can save them, or power can save them, or politics or technology can save them. But in reality, those things can't save you. And then if you know, forgo just doing what your creator told you to do, which is, you know, to believe in him or her or it, and to, you know, not kill anybody, and to start a family, and, you know, to work hard and be honest, then you start doing a lot of counter, you know, very short-sighted things that either cause a lot of pain to other people and yourself in order to get money or power or to make the best technology. Yeah, and I see it over and over again. I see it happening, in Bitcoin right now, and I think it's one of the reasons why Bitcoin isn't going as smoothly as it should be, because people are unwilling to listen to the ultimate creator, and to not lie and not deceive, and to not fancy yourself as a god, but also just to listen to the creator of Bitcoin, and to just to follow his direction. So basically, I think there's a lot of confused people that are looking for politics, or governments, or Elon Musk, or some new technology to come to save them, but it's not. And then if everybody believes that, then we are going to create kind of a hellscape, a hell on earth. And I think that's what's happening, right now in America. People think politics is what's gonna save people, but it's not. It's just a simple golden rule: treat others like you want to be treated, and not stop trying to defeat one another. Stop trying to oppress and oppress and marginalize other people. And everybody thinks that they're on the right side of history, or they're the virtuous ones, or they're on the side of good. But in reality, they're not, because they think they know it all. So yeah, long story short, I think religion and belief in a supreme being or a belief creator will humble people and get people to listen to very wise rules about how to treat one another, to create a heavenly experience on earth.
Excellent. Beautiful. All right. So what I'm going to do now, Kevin, I'm going to move on to the rapid fire questions.
Yep.
And then we'll wrap it up. And it's been such a great conversation. We've been going for almost over an hour now, and it feels a lot quicker than that. So here we go, rapid fire questions. So first one is, what's the one book that's had the biggest impact on your life?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say as of right now, the Bible has.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. And then, what's your favorite quote or motto?
My favorite quote or motto. I don't know. I think it might be one that maybe I came up with. I think that if you're sure that you're the hero of the story, you're most likely the villain.
Nice. Okay.
And if you wonder if you're the villain, you're most likely the hero.
Oh, that's a good quote. So I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna put that in. I'm gonna have that in Kevin Pham, because that's
a better way to say it is if you're sure that you're a good person, you're most likely a bad person. If you wonder if you're a bad person, then you're most likely a good person. And This actually goes back to comic books, stories like Batman. So basically, all of them have something traumatic happen to them in their lives, and then they think that they're the hero to kind of right this wrong. But in reality, most people turn evil when they think that they're doing the right thing. They're for sure that they're doing the right thing to heal some pain or some slight in the past. So yeah, if you look at it, it's in all the themes of like most comic book stories.
Cool. All right. And then, if you were to choose one animal to be, what would it be and why?
What animal would I be? I think I'd be a lion.
Nice.
Yeah, because yeah, I mean, they're the king of the jungle, and they're you know, at the the top of the hierarchy, and they're the ones that are supposed to kind of keep things in order, keep things in balance.
Cool. All right. So finally, so before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to share or promote with the viewers and listeners?
Yeah, so I think mostly who I want to reach out to is BSVers. And I guess what I want to say is that we don't know everything. And there are a lot of problems in BSV that we're not conscious of that's holding us back. And I actually think that people holding and speculating on the price of BSV is actually hurting the development of the ecosystem.
Right.
Because it warps people's incentives to find ways to get people to hold BSV in order to, you know, pump somebody's investments or pump, you know, the BSV holders' bags. For example, you know, if the CEO holds, you know, BSV, then he'll just try to create a product to get people to hold BSV instead of a product that actually helps people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't hold BSV, rather you just focus on serving customers and helping people, then that will accelerate BSV's adoption, because at the end of the day, if you find a use case or solve a need using BSV's technology, then that will, you know, set things off and accelerate, you know, innovation and use. So yeah, long story short, if you just focus on serving other people and helping other people as opposed to serving yourself by trying to pump the price of BSV, then the BSV ecosystem will be better off.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, Kevin. As Kevin Pham for episode 13 of the FAIASIDE podcast and bridging the gap between people and technology. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking your valuable time to have a chat with us, and it has been great. And I'll speak to you very soon, Kevin.
All right, pleasure's all mine. Let me try to do the Faiā sign off. What is it? Is with patience and persistence, it will come.
That's it. Love it. That's it. Yeah, George's sign off there for Faiā. Faiā. With patience and persistence, it will come. I love that as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the message to the BSV community. Be patient. Stop trying to be overnight millionaires, and then eventually success will come.
Beautiful. Awesome. All right, Kevin. Chat soon.
All right, man.